back in the garage. No Volvos today, no RX-7s today. Maybe RX-7s today, I don't know. We'll see if Bobby wants to come over later. We'll talk about all that. But I took the wheels off the Rambler. It's up on jack stand still from when I pulled the motor out. And I literally just doused everything in PB Blaster. This car is from 1964, and I don't think anything has ever been removed off of it. So basically, we're trying to get all the suspension parts off today. There are some people who still sell a lot of these suspension parts. So like, you know, the tie rods and the steering parts, I should say, the tie rods and things like that, the pitman arm and all that kind of crap. They still sell all that. So I had to look this up. My dad was kind of worrying me that I was basically not going to be able to get anything, and I'd have to switch over to like a, I don't know, a Fox body steering rack or something like that, like a manual steering rack, which I might do anyway eventually, but it's money I don't have right now. So we're going to use what we've got, and I've got all the bushings down there to fix what I've got. But yeah, so we doused everything in PB Blaster. We're going to try and knock all of it off. We'll lay it out, basically show what it is, see what we could salvage and clean up on like the wire wheel, and then, you know, give it a coat of paint. If anything needs reinforcement, we'll weld some plate in and stuff like that, but we're gonna go from there. Yeah, so we'll get on that today and hopefully get a lot done. Hopefully at least get both sides done. I'd really like to get the subframe dropped out of the car too, but like I said, these bolts and these nuts on this thing are really rusty and like covered in mud. So I feel like I'm gonna have a hell of a time getting all this stuff to break loose, but hopefully we don't. And if we get everything apart, everything that is allowed to have it is definitely gonna get some anti-seize. So anyway, let's get on that. It's gonna be a lot of work, so I'll check back with you in a second and see how it's going. So we've kind of got some of the parts taken off. It's pretty interesting the way that this is set up. So you can see that this actually doesn't spin. It's only right here in this joint on the on this, I guess, spring perch, sorry. And it only pivots right here at this joint here. And here's where the tie rod hooks up. So I guess this could be like, I don't know, 2-piece knuckle or whatever. And then this bolts on behind it like that. And that's what pivots this area here. I mean, you can see how shot that ball joint is. It's absolutely destroyed. But I'm pretty sure this is all original 1964 stuff. I mean, I really don't think that there's anything on here that's been replaced. I don't even think the ball joints have been replaced. It's a possibility that they have been. It does have a grease fitting on the bottom, so it could be a newer, you know, a newer brand or something like that. But I mean, look at how, I don't know if I can get this to focus, but look at how gunked up with just grease and rust and dirt. I mean, everything is like this. Every single nut and bolt on here is caked with all that crap on it. And if it's not caked, it's got, you know, it's all rusty and basically all just disgusting completely. But that's why I kind of threw gloves on too, because I've been soaking everything in PB Blaster, and I've got the camera, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to mess the camera up. So whenever I need to grab the camera, I just take a glove off and grab the camera. But here's the hub. I mean, you can see how this bolts on. The bolt pattern here basically fits to the face of this, and then these bolts go through this piece here through the back, up here in these 2 bolt holes, and then the bottom 2 bolt holes are the smaller bolts that basically hold the hub on. And then yeah, so I've got most of it pretty much taken off right here at the hub. I'm gonna try and pull this ball joint nut off, this castle nut with the cotter pin through it and everything like that, but I feel like this is probably gonna give me the most trouble right now, because it's super gunked up, and I just feel like that's probably gonna give me the most trouble right now, is just trying to get that cotter pin out. If I could break the tabs off and then get an impact on it, I'm pretty sure I could just completely destroy the cotter pin and get it all out. Obviously the ball joint needs to be replaced, so hopefully, I didn't look, but I'm pretty sure that's something I could get. I feel like it'd be a standard on most cars. It looks like it's riveted on, so it's probably got to be replaced with a bolt-on unit, which is the standard for most cars like this. But yeah, so that's basically where we're at right now. Just, you know, moving through the suspension. Once I can get these arms off and everything, I can give you guys a closer look at everything. I've been talking about reinforcement and stuff like that. Well, these control arms, so like this control arm here is completely open on the bottom. I'm thinking about plating it off, and the same with these, probably plate them off right here, just to add a little bit of added strength to it. Like, I haven't, sorry, I'm trying to do this with one hand, and it's like my off hand, so I'm having trouble, but I haven't really discussed this, but the whole goal of this car, besides being like a fun street car, is I want to do drag week with this car. I was looking over the rules and stuff, and a lot of the rules say you got to keep, like for some of the classes, say that you got to keep a lot of the stock suspension components and stuff like that. Like the rear end can't be, it can't be like off of stock, so it's still got to be a leaf spring suspension. Can't be like ladder bar or 4-link or anything like that for some of the classes. And I think the class that I'm going to want to run would be, I think it was, what was it? I think it was Super Street, small block power adder would be the one that I would run. That would, you know, that fits basically my criteria. Like, I'm going to be running an LS 5.3, which is technically a small block. I guess by their terms, it would be a small block. And then it's basically going to be a stock suspension, at least stock front suspension with just upgraded components. Like, you're allowed to have shocks and springs. You know, you're allowed to have suspension limiters. You're allowed to have stuff like that. But I think you're allowed to have traction bars. I'd have to check the rules on that. But basically, the whole point is I really want to do drag week, and I feel like this is the perfect car for me because it's going to be, I'm literally building it to be a street car, so it'd be a good drag week car as well. And yeah, and I think it'd be pretty fun, and I've just always wanted to do it. I always watch videos of it and stuff, and it just looks like so much fun. Just driving all over the country, just going, you know, drag strip to drag strip and running your pass and then going to the next one. Like, it just seems like a lot of fun. And you do have to, you know, for those of you not familiar with drag week, you have to street drive the car to every single event and then run a pass and then get back in the car and drive to the next place. And sometimes the drag strips can be super far away from each other. I mean, you're driving all over the country to different drag strips and stuff. But yeah, like, that's kind of the whole point. It's like you street drive your 8-second car or 9-second car or whatever. And the only thing you're allowed to have or bring with you is a trailer that you're allowed to tow behind the car that you drive. You can't have like a, sorry, just lost my train of thought. You can't have like a follow vehicle that has all your tools and has all your parts and stuff. It has to be in the trailer or in the car that is attached to the car that you're driving. So this has to do everything. You can't have a support vehicle. You can't have any of that stuff. You're allowed to bring people with you. So like, you could have a passenger, or you can even have multiple passengers. But yeah, the whole point is to run everything out of the car. And that's kind of like my dream for this car. I want to do drag week. So in order to fit into one of the classes that I feel like I'd be competitive in with this car, at least for the build that I'm going for, I've got to keep a lot of the stock style suspension. So we've got to try to salvage a lot of this stuff and clean it up and make sure that it works and that it won't bind up on me and that everything's new and clean. But yeah, so I haven't explained that before, but that's basically the plan for the car. But I'm gonna get back to doing this, and hopefully I can get it apart without destroying anything. But we'll check back in a minute. All right, just checking back in. So I've got the spring perch, and I guess you could just call this a spring perch / knuckle. I mean, it does a lot of things. So yeah, I want to actually show you this in here. There's like this inspection cover or like this plastic cap. That's how you separate the part that spins, so you can either grease up the bearing or replace the bearing completely. So it's actually pretty cool. I'll show that to you guys here in a second. But I also wanted to show you, like, oh man, my hands are all filthy all over my camera. Fantastic. Anyway, so you can see the bushing here. This is where the upper control arm was on. Look at this. I mean, everything's completely wrecked. But I mean, you would basically expect this because it is from 1964. But look at this. This is the lower control arm that joins into the subframe. Look at this. It's like absolutely wrecked. I mean, there's no way you could have ever driven on the current bushings that are in the car. Like, no way. It would have been completely unsafe to even drive this thing. But we literally have all of the brand new bushings. There's some stuff we still have to order. Like, I got to order a ball joint. It's riveted in, which was like standard in that time, I guess. But you know, some cars still come kind of like that, but you just drill out the rivets or just grind them off, and then when they sell you a replacement, it's a bolt-through replacement, so that'll be fine. And then the inner and outer tie rod, I guess you would say, that needs to be replaced. Both of them need to be replaced. They're like fused together, so they need to be replaced. But everything else looks pretty clean for the most part. You can kind of see, you know, you can see how gunked up everything is. It's not really focusing, but you can kind of see how everything's all gunked up and all that. But for the most part, everything's in pretty good condition, and I'm overly surprised at how easy everything's coming apart. I would film more of it, but it's just, it's kind of like just me, you know, turning wrenches. I mean, if you guys want to see that stuff, let me know and I'll show more of it. But I'm kind of just getting in the groove of like taking stuff apart and then showing you guys basically what I'm taking apart. I mean, look at this lower shock bushing right here. Look at this thing. I mean, that thing is annihilated. That's literally how it was in the car. Like, this shock, I mean, does nothing anymore. I mean, it's pretty fused. It's either fused to open or like you just can't even do anything to it. So, I mean, everything's just annihilated in this car, especially bushings and any kind of suspension parts or anything like that are just completely wrecked. So we're gonna get all of it updated. We'll get all of it cleaned. I mean, I've taken apart most of this in here. I gotta take the upper control arms off. Once I get it all apart, I'm gonna lay it out and kind of like show you guys everything. I do put all of the hardware in bags and stuff, so I'm getting ready to do that here in a second too. I'll show you guys that. But yeah, so we'll get all of that taken care of, and I'll show you guys all of the parts and kind of my idea for like reinforcement or what we're gonna do for it. Maybe mock up the shock and see if that's gonna fit, because it is for like a Ford Ranger or something like that. But yeah, so we'll come back, we'll show you guys that. Should be pretty cool, and I'll let you guys know what's going on. Okay, so this has been kind of a little bit of a hassle, but we're getting it done. I mean, I'm getting filthy. I just washed my hands, but right now I've got this strut rod, which I actually didn't even know I didn't know what they called this. I had to actually text my dad a picture of it and say, hey, like, what do they call this? I thought it might have been like a torsion rod or something like that, but my dad corrected me, basically told me, no, that's a strut rod. I guess its main purpose is to strengthen the lower control arm and keep the suspension in line. Pretty interesting. like I said, I've never knew what that was called, so found that out through my dad. But here's some of the suspension parts laid out. So I mean, we've got the shocks right here. You can see closed down, they're exactly the same size, almost. If anything, the competition engineering, it's a little bit longer, but that shouldn't be a big deal at all. So I'm pretty confident that these are going to work and we won't have any issues with them. And then there's the lower control arm here. These ball joints, as you can see, they're riveted on. Flip it over real quick. You can see it's riveted on and just absolutely nasty. But I guess the plan for this would be to plate this bottom part here, since it's a stamped piece. We're gonna plate it, and then we'll have like a nice radius cut here, just to leave access to the bolts that for the strut rod and for the shock. So that's the plan for that. Just plate it from basically all the way back here, all the way up. We'll radius cut it here so we can still get access to these bolts and, you know, to the ball joint and everything like that. That should be no problem. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I do want to lower the front of the car, And, you know, this isn't like a very popular car, so no one just offers lowering kits for it or like lowering springs or anything like that. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is just take measurements off the stock spring and see if I can match something. I'm fairly confident that like a Nova or, you know, something like that within the same time frame, they're probably gonna be the same dimensions. And then what I'll do is the overall length of this, I'll shorten it by like an inch. So if I can find something an inch shorter than this, but everything else is the same dimensions, and then I can work out the weight of the front of the car and everything, and then we'll have like a nice set of shocks, or a nice set of springs in the front, as well as a nice pair of shocks. So I think that shouldn't be an issue at all. The perches themselves, the mounts and everything, they're metal, but they're all covered in, you know, grime and all that crap, but they'll clean up nice. It should be no problem. But the only thing that I'm worried about is not only the strength of this spring, but I do want to lower the front of the car, and there's going to be a little bit of weight, you know, in the front of the car with the whole turbo setup and the V8 and everything like that. Not that the stock engine and stock transmission were super heavy. It was a straight six flathead, all iron, like everything was super heavy. So I'm sure that this would hold up to it. I just want to get something that's a little bit more like race, I guess. I don't know. And I want to lower it. So, and I'm not going to cut the springs or like clamp the springs or anything like that. So, not that I haven't done that before, but I do not want to do it on this car, considering how fast I want to go with it, and considering that I do want to do drag week with it, and drag week is grueling on cars like this. So, I want to make sure that I do it right and all that kind of jazz. But here's the lower spring perch, or like the knuckle. I'm not really sure how to, you know, what to call this, because it's multiple parts in one. I mean, the upper control arm bolts through here, the knuckle and the hub bolt through here, the ball joint on the lower control arm bolts through here, and then this spring perch, sorry, I keep saying shock, but this spring perch rests on the top of here. So it's quite a few different things, and as I showed before, this spins freely on here. There is a bearing in here, so once you pop the shock off, you can see that there's like a cap in here. You pull that cap out, and you can see it's all bolted together with a bearing down there, and everything in there is actually really clean. There's no rust or anything. So we might be able to salvage those bearings, but if they're the original ones, I'll probably try and match a part number and just replace them, because it'll be you know, just one of those things to just get checked off the list and not have to worry about it. But then here's the knuckle, basically the steering arm, I guess you would call it, but it's part of the whole hub assembly. And then here's the hub itself. This used to be a complete drum brake setup, but I stripped the drum brakes off of it quite a while ago, because I'm gonna get this. There's this company called Scarebird. I'm gonna get their disc brake conversion kit for the car, and then I'll do all that. And like I said, I do label all of the parts, and I put them in baggies, so that way I know where they go. I mean, I wire wheel every single bolt, make sure that they're nice and clean. If the threads are all chewed up or anything like that, I just go ahead and replace the hardware instead of having to worry about it. And here's these are the upper control arm. It's one control arm once you bolt it together, but it's two pieces, two stamped pieces. And the same thing I think I'm going to do for the lower control, I'm going to do for this. I think I'm just going to plate it from here with like a radius cut here for access to the bushing into the bolt. And then I'm going to plate it all the way down here with another radius cut here to get to the bolts that bolt it to the spring perch. And I'll do that on both sides. And that way that these will be super tough, and I'll have no issues with them bending or breaking or anything like that. And then, like I said, the rest, I got the steering linkage is still in there, and that strut rod is still in there. But it's soaking in PB Blaster right now, so hopefully we'll be able to get that off here shortly. But so that's basically what this front suspension looks like, at least for the driver's side. The passenger side is going to look exactly the same. And we are going to do a little bit of welding on these control arms. I mentioned before that I want to buy a parts cleaner and a sandblaster, because a lot of this stuff needs to be completely stripped clean, like sandblasted or whatever. And sorry, my dog was barking at the mail lady. Anyway, so a lot of this stuff needs to be sandblasted. That way I can weld on it, and that way I can get a good coat of paint on it so they never rust again. I don't know if I'm gonna spend the money and get them powder coated. I do plan on driving this car a lot, so I guess it makes sense for me to get it powder coated, but honestly I don't have the money for all that jazz. So I'm thinking about just doing multiple coats of some strong paint, maybe like a Rust-Oleum or maybe like a wrinkle paint or something like that that I can get multiple coats on. And if it's bare metal and it's prepped nice, it should be good. So I think I'll probably just end up painting them. It'll be easier on me and cheaper for me for sure. So we'll end up doing that. And but yeah, that's the front suspension. It's definitely interesting. I mean, I've been used to working on like import cars and stuff like that that have, I guess, more modern technology for the suspension. And this stuff it's pretty neat actually to look at. So I don't know, it's been fun taking it apart. I mean, I'm getting a little tired of some of this stuff. Really fought me. But like, check out this tie rod. So this tie rod right here, I could not get the nut to come off after basically hammering it out of this steering arm right here. I could not get the nut to come off. It was spinning the joint. Come on, focus. Focus. It was spinning the joint inside of there. So I had to take it all apart and weld it, and I was burning all that grease out of it. But once I welded it, it basically just, the nut came right off of it, so I had no issues with it at all. But yeah, so that's the front suspension. The next video that I'm gonna come out with, we're gonna do a ton of welding. So we're gonna be welding the motor mounts. We're gonna finish those up. They're all in here still, basically ready to go. Once I get these welded up, that'll be all taken care of. I've got those motor mounts. I've got the motor mount plates on the engine itself. I got some stitch welding I want to do on the subframe, and then I also got the control arms that I want to do all the reinforcement for. So we'll cut plate, we'll radius all the cuts, and we'll tack it all up and weld it. Maybe we'll TIG weld some of it, but that, I'm hoping that's going to be in the next video. I don't see why not. I just got to get the rest of this suspension taken apart. But yeah, basically I just wanted to make this video just to kind of show the suspension, because I said I would do that. So that's this, and then the next one hopefully we'll be doing some welding and some cool shit. But yeah, so if you're checking this one out, I appreciate it. Please like, please subscribe. I hate asking, but it does help get me out to reach more people, and I am kind of trying to get like a cool community going of like cool car shit, and maybe meet some people that do the drag week stuff. So yeah, anyway, just like, subscribe, share, and comment, because I want to hear what you guys have to say. I mean, it'd be really cool to be like, get some insight, or maybe get some suggestions on what you guys think I should do to it. Maybe I should do something different to the suspension. Maybe you guys got better ideas. Just let me know. Totally willing to listen to all that stuff. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you guys come back, and hopefully we got better stuff going on next time. And yeah, so thanks again. Appreciate it. Peace.